anyway.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to this week's Water Cooler Chat, where we talk about all things Livepeer, whether it's broadcasting, orchestrating, or delegating. If you have questions, please join us on stage. Just put up your hand, and we'll invite you up to stage. Today's Water Cooler is pretty laid back, and we're just gonna have a conversation. We do have a Q&A at in about 45 minutes with Adam. 0CX Adam, who Chase 0CX Chase. I gotta remember the name. There's two Adams working on the new Explorer, and I'm bringing up the Chase one, if that helps distinguish them. He's going to be doing a bit of Q&A on the new Explorer, which is highly anticipated. And so if you have questions about the Explorer, please get your questions ready. We'll start off with doing introductions, and then we'll hop into some topics and then do the Q&A. So I will start by introducing myself and then go down the list. Hello, everyone. I'm Titan. Been running the Titan node pool since May of 2021. And today my topic is going to be about pixels, how to calculate pixels done by transcoders, remote transcoders. So this is just something I'm trying to upgrade with the pool, is better accounting. So yeah, I got some ideas around that, and I'd like some feedback. And I have another topic, but I'll come back to that later if we get around to it. So thank you very much. Ben, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Sure. So I'm Ben with Authority Null, been transcoding since November last year. I have a topic today, but I'm definitely interested to ask some questions about the Explorer when Chase comes in.
Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us. Interpreter, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Hello, I am a private pointer, reference to the interpointer or interpreter, depending on your interpretation, orchestrators. And I don't have a topic in mind, kind of just lurking today. Hope y'all are well.
Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us. Papa Bear, do you have a topic? And go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah. Well, I am Papa Bear, and I've been running Solar Farm for about a year now. And I don't know if it's really a topic, but I was curious with that new low bitrate profile, if anyone else is having issues with just seeing a lot of errors with it. I've been getting a lot of errors on that one, like Orchestrator busy and things like that, when the orchestrators shouldn't be busy. I mean, it's got one stream sometimes at that. So curious to know if anyone else has noticed that or that. And then I'm also interested in your topic of the pixels, because I was playing around with that over the weekend too. So maybe something interesting will come up between the two of us, or at least or the group. But I'm having a few issues with it.
Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us, Papa Bear. Garden State Node, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Sure. What's up, guys? I haven't been on a call in probably a couple months, but I think this new time should work better. My question, I'm just curious, what is everyone using for their Arbitrum endpoint? So I've been using Infura, Alchemy, most recently Morales. I see there's some stuff going on with the community node, so just interested to hear what everyone's using.
Very good. Yes, this is a great topic, and I'm sure Fort Coon's maybe he'll show up today, but he runs the community node, so. But yeah, that'll be good to get everyone's feedback on that. Thank you so much for joining us, Ed. I guess I'll call you Ed. Tom, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Hey everyone, I'm Tom. I run the video and transcoding team at Livepeer. I don't have a topic today. I'm just here to listen in and see what people are talking about.
Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us, Tom. Alex, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Sure. Hi, I'm Alex. I'm a TPM at Livepeer, and for now I manage Orchestrator experience. And I've also been running an Orchestrator for about 8 months now. And yeah, I don't have any major topics, but I'm eager to hear what Chase has to share with the new Explorer development.
Very good. Thank you so much for joining us. Chase Media, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Hi everyone, it's Rebecca here with Chase Media. I've been running the node since about February, rebranded it from Titan Node 2, I believe. And I am just listening in today and here to say hi to everyone. So I hope everyone's good. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. All right. Wait, who else joined? Frank with Ultima Ratio. Frank, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Hey, hi, I'm Frank. I'm running Ultima Ratio node since May 21, and I have no particular topic, but I'm interested also by the topic of Ed about RPC, because we have some difficulty with the community node actually. So that could be interesting to know which RPC other orchestrator use with which configuration. Block pooling interval and how it's work for them.
Very good. Yes, two people with endpoint questions. Great to have you. Thank you, Frank, for being here. Elite Proxy, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Hey, it's Elite Proxy. I've been running the Elite Encoder node since October last year. No questions today. Just curious listening on the discussion and see what we have new in development.
Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay.
Do you mind if I jump in with a topic? I almost forgot.
Yes, go ahead.
Awesome. So I'd love to know if anyone's worked with getting a proxy in front of Livepeer. I spent quite a few hours with Mike Zuper, who isn't here right now, but trying to get the traffic proxy to work in front of Livepeer and was running into some issues. So I'm just curious if anyone's managed to get that to work.
Proxy in front of Livepeer. Well, why don't we just start with your topic? Does anyone want to try and answer that? Or Ben, why don't you explain to us what you've done so far?
Yeah, well, it's not me per se, but I was watching Mike Zuper try and get it to work, basically taking 8935 or whatever port that you're using for Livepeer out of the question, so you don't even need to open it. And that can open up some opportunities for load balancing and using like Cloudflare Tunnel and all kinds of fun stuff. Unfortunately, we were having some issues where we were getting a plain text error when trying to proxy gRPC requests. So we kind of hit a roadblock there. I'm just curious if anyone's encountered that and managed to get past it.
I haven't tried to work on that myself. I thought of that idea a couple weeks back, but haven't spent any time trying it out. Haven't got the hardware set up for it yet.
Gotcha.
So is the idea behind that to basically have the requests go to one endpoint at which point you control where it ends up and how the traffic gets there? Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah, I mean the idea would be to forward 8935 to 443, so you never have to open that port at all.
Oh, interesting.
I was thinking so why would you use 443 rather than 8935 in any case?
Well, you'd only have to open 443 for anything, and because you're using a proxy, everything gets forwarded to 443, right? So you just
Okay.
open 443 and lock down literally everything else, and then you have an extremely secure machine. And then there's also load balancing and some interesting things you can do with traffic, and especially the Cloudflare tunnel, which is a whole another subject in itself.
Okay.
The only thing that comes to mind with respect to traffic and gRPC forwarding is that I believe it requires HTTPS, so you would need a certificate on both your traffic node and the orchestrator, the node running the orchestrator, if we're talking about a Kubernetes environment, at least.
Right, so this would probably be Docker first before Kubernetes. But it's interesting because Livepeer generates a cert every time you run it, right? Its own cert.
Yeah, that may be an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only other time I've seen that like plain text error show up is when you have services that are using HTTP 1 and HTTP 2, because sometimes when those are mixed up, you'll run into like a protocol error like that. But But yeah,
Yeah, we'll keep working on it, just tinkering with some things and seeing what's possible.
That'd be a really interesting improvement if you get that working. I'd be curious to see what we could do for scalability and reliability. Very, very cool. I wonder if you could do a grant for something like that.
Yeah.
The approach I was going to take was just have two machines behind the same IP address, essentially, maybe a third device behaving like a load balancer. And I was going to play with that proxy D script to route just 8935 port from one machine or the other. And then I was thinking might share the LP, I think it's LP data folder. There's a way to do it without sharing the folder with the key. It would be ideal, but I think it's where it generates all the stream info in the database. So and maybe have both processes writing to the same drive or something. And if you swapped traffic, it would in theory hold. But I don't know the difference between changing the port number, what complexity that adds to it, or if what else you might run into.
Are you talking about using the same database for two nodes?
Yeah, that's kind of where I was thinking in a high availability type system, like what Ben was talking about. Instead of trying to do 443, just forwarding 8935.
Yeah, I've tried run two nodes on one database, and you get lots of RPC errors, or like you have a bunch of errors when you're running the nodes, and they don't operate properly. I don't know if that can be fixed or what you're implying, but from my experience, you can't run two nodes on one database.
Even if they were, I wonder, you probably weren't running them with the same IP address configuration, right? As far as public service address.
Yeah, it was the same IP, but the issue was that the database, it was a database writing and reading issue.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. All right.
I don't know the exact error. I could probably look it up, but it was something along the line. I think it's something like SQLite can only attach to one process at a time or something. And when there's two trying to fight, then it just can't update they're both trying to update the database and they can't, is what's happening.
Right. I mean, in theory, only one would really be taking traffic at a time. I would think if you could at least try that route, but I doubt. I still think you're going to run into that same issue. Okay, that's good. I mean, it's not the next thing on my list to try, but it's good to talk about what options have been tried.
Yeah, I don't say there's a point of sharing the database. You might as well just run independent databases for each.
Run separate ones. Yeah, instance. That's where my concern is. Because I think it's going to generate the output of the stream segments into that same folder. And so, if there was a way to have the databases separate but have the stream segments shared somehow, maybe that would suffice. The concern is if you're trying to fail over from one to the other and there's queued up segments of streams on one device, they won't be present on the other one and it'll lead to disruption.
Yeah, I don't know. Why would you share the area where you do the segments? Because, yeah, maybe I don't quite.
Yeah, the thought process was that you could drop one node out of service while it's streaming, and then the other one would be able to pick it up and keep running without. So you'd be able to take one of your two machines behind one IP address offline, do maintenance, and then put it back in service without dropping any streams.
And that's an orchestrator running the orchestrator flag?
Yeah, that would be the idea. I mean, the most simple configure is OT setup altogether, but
yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that's getting.
I think that's what Ben was trying to accomplish. It sounds like.
Yeah, there's so much stuff that we've just been playing with over the last couple of weeks, trying to figure out what's possible and what's not. It's a lot.
Definitely. Cool. Well, I think that's That's I'm glad to see more progress, Ben. I appreciate all your effort you're putting into this stuff, battle testing it. You started with the keys. You guys figured out a good key solution. Now you're doing this. It's great. Great to hear. Any other comments on that last on that topic before we move on?
Nothing here.
It's not exactly that topic, but since talking about tunnels, is anyone out using Cloudflare for their GeoDNS here? I was curious to know what your experience is with it. All Amazon. All right. All right. That was my follow up for Ben's question there. But
I feel like
I'm using it for GeoDNS.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry, what'd you say?
I said I'm using it for GeoDNS. I think it works better than AWS personally.
I've heard that, so I was thinking of maybe well, I was looking into it. I mean, but I haven't got it. I haven't made the switch yet. But you find it works better?
Yep, it's a little cheaper too.
Is it though? Because like you can do the Amazon one if you don't use like there's two ways to do it, and I mean I'm paying like I think $1 or $2 something like that a month for Amazon and the Cloudflare.
Yeah, but don't you have to pick like regions and countries? So like or continents. What I like about
you can do it by state in the U.S. and then it's like countries I think in the rest of the world. So yeah, it doesn't. Well, no, you can do latency and things like that. I don't use that feature, but I think there are other options. What are you using?
It's cheaper than AWS using like traffic policies. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
But is there a performance benefit from using Cloudflare, you think?
I've heard there is. Apparently they have
you know,
yeah, they have a lot more
edge nodes that more edge nodes that can supposedly better route you, but or get responses faster and things like that.
Because it's only used for the discovery request. So as long as the discovery request is what you want, then speed and reliability and everything beyond that for the actual transcoding part is irrelevant.
Well, that's where the tunnel comes in, because Cloudflare has so many available options. If you go by proximity for your geolocation, and I could be a little wrong here, but based on what I've seen, you can put in coordinates for where you want Cloudflare to reach you. And with a tunnel, it can automatically choose which ingest near your server it should pick. So it's always taking the best, most efficient route. Where with AWS, you choose the region and then that's it, right?
Yeah, but that's just for the discovery request. Because beyond that, it just switches over to your IP address and then it uses the public internet.
Well, some people are using the DNS for the service address instead of the IP.
Ah.
Yeah, and I know there's been talk of issues doing it that way, but at least with Cloudflare, because this has been tested over the last couple of weeks, there's no real like performance decrease for using that as a service address. In fact, if you have all your nodes just using that DNS name, you kind of get some automatic failover there. Because if one node can't respond, if Cloudflare can't reach it, then the request will just be forwarded to a node that can, right? So you, in theory, you wouldn't miss a test stream, if that works.
Or anything if it goes down. I mean, it should be able to just realize, okay, that server's not there, or the closest server is this one. There's if it picks the closest one, then rather than being tied into one IP address.
Well, it'd also be nice to have something that's truly scalable, like if we had multiple broadcasters, because with AWS right now, it's really just being gamified around the ingest service for livepeer.com. So like, I have the 3 ingest locations I have set are New York State, Illinois, and California. Beyond that, if you're in Texas, it just goes to some random node like anywhere, because it's like, oh, it doesn't It's not recognized as geolocation. So like the Amazon way I have it set up is like only works towards livepeer.com. Any other broadcaster that's outside of like my set regions is going to be like, it's not going to work, right? So proximity location is probably the better way to go into the future. And then whoever does that better is definitely going to win. So maybe Cloudflare is actually the better option for that.
And it can do latency too. Like Amazon, I guess, will only do latency if you're on, if you're using Amazon's servers, but Cloudflare will let you do, at least the way I understand it is, it can pick based on latency. So if there's like congestion on your normal route to which is usually your fastest node to respond, it doesn't care. It'll just go to, like, if you got one in Chicago and New York and Chicago's having some issues and the request is coming from Chicago, it'll go to the New York one if it's faster, if it's a faster route. And supposedly, I think it does some kind of intelligent routing too, whereas Amazon's is more of just a traditional kind of internet routing, like try this, if it works, go, or just whatever standard internet stuff. Whereas I believe
Yeah, it
Cloudflare uses
uses
some sort of AI to
quick
get you on it.
quick protocol, which I don't know much about, but that's what Cloudflare uses with the tunnel, which is apparently like blazing fast.
I know when you're using the tunnel, and depending on how you're using it, you do bypass some parts of the I mean, I guess not the internet, but it's a faster route. I know that, more efficient. Yeah, I saw some like diagrams where it takes out some of the hops and just goes through. Because Cloudflare's got so many edge servers that you can just end up getting better routes through that. I know I didn't do a good job of explaining it, but
Yeah,
I'll
and
work on something to be able.
unfortunately, that's where the whole 443 thing comes in, because Cloudflare can't listen or make these things work on any other port. It has to be 443. So you sort of have to get the proxy working or the tunnel working on that port, which is still being tinkered with and seeing if that's actually possible.
It has to be on 443, really? Because I was just playing with it. I mean, I didn't have SSL
It's not a
working.
specific 443 port issue. What happens is
Oh, hey, there he is.
there's limits to what ports and ranges and protocols that Cloudflare proxying and tunneling that uses. So like you just got to make sure that and I said 443 when we were talking about it this weekend just because 443 is the standard web port, right? So like you're never going to have issues with firewalls or anything along those lines if that port is being used. So that's why I was advising 443 because everything runs that way for SSL based traffic.
Gotcha.
Well, there you go. While we're at it, why don't we do introductions? Because we have some new people in here, and then we can continue on with the topics. Is that all right, Ben? If we move on.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Very cool. Okay, let's do some more introductions here. Fort Koonsman, I see you've joined us. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and if you have a topic, please share it with us.
Yeah, Joey with the Fort Koonsman node. Sorry. I'm just gonna listen in today. I've missed the last several of these because I couldn't make the new time, so just looking to get caught up.
We missed you, man. Welcome back.
Very cool.
Thanks, Mike.
Why are you able to make it today? Mind I asking?
My day job calendar kind of opened up where it normally does not.
Okay, cool. Good. Great to have you, Fort Koonsman. Nice to see you again. Lazy Days, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Don't really have a topic. I just saw this pop up on my phone and had been meaning for like a year to jump in one of these. And figured I would hop in for a minute. I'm gonna have to run in a second. But yeah, I've been around for a while. I stopped running my Orchestrator for a little bit due to upstream bandwidth, but I've got some fiber now and do my own hosted stuff. I got some stuff in the data center as well. But just trying to hear what you guys have to say and pick up some knowledge.
Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us. Lazy Days, great to have you, and yeah, welcome to the water cooler. I definitely have seen you around, so it's great to have you.
Appreciate it.
Cool. Mike Zuper, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Hey guys, Mike Zuper running the Zode app Orchestrator since February. No topic today per se, but I think a lot of the guys and I are in the chat working on block polling intervals, trying to figure out ARB nodes, trying to get the highest, lowest latency score, and reduce your server costs. So I think if those topics are of interest, you'll probably find Authority Null and Papa Bear and I in there in the office hours. So if you guys want to pop in, feel free to. But I'm just poking around today.
Yeah, ARB nodes for sure. I'm waiting for mine to sync up, and it could be a damned eternity. That would be the biggest issue because I've tried a super slow polling interval on the public one, and it still gives me that 1,000 requests in a minute, which is garbage. But anyway, sorry, I'll shut up again.
Nah, that's good, Lazy. I think you're speaking the pain that we all feel. I think Frank, myself, we all are taking hits to ARB nodes, and I know Joey at Fort Koonsman, he's probably thinking that's the bane of his existence right now. But we're all fighting it, and we're all trying to collectively solve it, get the blueprint in place so that we can provide the stability to everybody and get away from all of these outages and block watching problems.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I've got capacity, I'll offer it to other people or send in another server to Colo or something. But I wanted to get one up and going and just kind of see how it ran and what its capacity was.
Yeah, we're all tinkering in that same regard. And I have some Grafana dashboards that I've been indexing for the nodes I'm running and syncing. So at some point, I'm going to make that publicly available so everyone can at least look and say, what is this big ball called Arbitrum that I got to run in my data center? How's it going to work? What's it look like? And without having to pain yourself through days and days of syncing and things. So, just we have a ARB community node chat thread out there in the Discord. So if you want to jump in there, that's where a lot of that conversation's happening.
Good deal. I appreciate it.
Very cool. Great to hear. This is amazing. Yeah, that seems to be a topic, Arbitrum nodes. So we'll continue on, though. Varies, would you like to introduce yourself and a topic?
Hey, I'm running the various numerous orchestrator since more than 3 years now. No topic from my side as usual. Yeah, but it's great to finally make the water cooler again. I've been on holidays and also the new time is a bit difficult for me. But yeah, today I'm here.
Well, we miss you too, for sure. You're definitely the OG in the group. So I'm glad to have you on this call, man.
Varies, is this a good time, you think? Like, will you be able to make this in the future? I hope you can.
I mean, I try to, but this is like an early evening for me. So usually I'm doing some sports, or if the weather is nice, I'm outside or enjoying a beer. So, maybe during the winter it's more common for me to be on a call. During the summer, I guess it's gonna be sporadic.
How dare you enjoy your life on an evening? Oh, jeez. Should be on Livepeer 24/7. The purpose of actually moving it was to incorporate more European time zone because it was late night. So it's the goal of this is to try and go from West Coast United States to Europe in a reasonable time for most people. So, and today is one of the busiest calls we've had. So I'm hoping that this is a good. Unless just the speaker, everyone's so interested in the Q&A that everyone's like, hey, I can't miss this one. So anyway, we're going to try this out. Thank you for bearing with me on changing the times like multiple times and doing surveys and kind of things, but just trying to figure out a good solution. Okay, cool. That was good. Well, there's a clear trend in topic so far, and this has been 4 topics. 4 people have mentioned Arbitrum endpoints, Arbitrum nodes. So let's hop into that big daddy before our Q&A speech. So we got about 10 minutes, so we can always start on it and then come back to it after the Q&A. So let's flesh this out because this seems to be a pain point. Garden State Node, you were the first to mention it, so why don't you tell us about your issues you're having and your thoughts, and kick us off with this topic.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I mean, it's probably the same as the rest of you guys. I've used Infura. I'm on like the $50 a month plan on there. I'm on like the $40 a month plan on Moralis. And then I tried to use Alchemy as well. I tried to use QuickNode. I even emailed Infura and was like, hey, can you give me like 2 million requests a day and just like I'll rebrand my node as the Infura node? And they're like, we'll get back to you, but haven't heard back. Sounds like everyone's really having the same thing. Running your own node seems overwhelming. So yeah, I'm sure the rest of you have more experience or are sharing the same pain.
I'd have to give you some credit for ingenuity in terms of getting that sponsored node. That's a genius idea. I didn't even consider that. So first off, that's smart. Like if you can get a service provider, just give it to you and you could sponsor them, man, that's really smart because then you don't have to run anything. So
exactly.
kudos
I figured
on
it
that.
costs them nothing extra. So
and it's free marketing, right? So I love it. That's a great idea.
I even my friend works at Coinbase, and I'm like Chris, I'm like, you gotta like find out what they're using and just like let me get access.
Amazing.
Have you tried the community ARB node, Ed?
I haven't, and like the thread got so long, and I feel like it's a lot of work to catch up. And I was going to recently, and now I see it's like been down a lot. So I was like, you know what? Let me just hold off until people smarter than myself figure it out.
Okay, well, on that topic, for Koonsman, why don't you give us an update on what you're working on with the community ARB node, and give us a brief update.
Frankly, I'm just trying to narrow down individual components of this, figure out what keeps failing. There's some type of issue going on right now, and I don't know if it's just because of the sheer volume of requests now or what, but there's a Python module, request module for just sending HTTP requests, and every once in a while it can't assign the address to the Arbitrum node on the backend, and I can't figure out why. So I'm thinking it has something to do with proxyd actually now, and I'm basically gonna just keep. I'm gonna start directing traffic directly to either the primary or the secondary node. I mean, failover won't work, but I got to see if that's what's causing the problem. So I know I posted about that. I haven't actually done it yet because I wanted to make sure I had enough time to deal with it if things went poorly. But that's what I'm working on now. Just trying to keep this thing stable because I know everyone keeps having issues, and honestly, don't know why. Everything seemed to be going really well, and then all of a sudden, a lot of intermittent issues started happening, and I didn't change anything, so I'm not really sure what the problem is.
So is that a proxy issue that's before the nodes that you're trying to do failover, configurations on that you think is having issues?
Yeah. So proxyd sits between the web service and the primary and secondary ARB nodes. And I think that's part of the issue. I know I'm about to abandon proxyd altogether because it can't handle like the failover is a problem, right? Because if it tries a node with, let's say an orchestrator just sends a bad request, all right, it tries the primary responds with some kind of error because the request was bad. Then it tries the secondary, same thing, because the request was bad, it's gonna respond as like an error. Then proxyd just saw, okay, both nodes errored out. Now I'm gonna wait the timeout period before I try either one of them again. So there's this like balance between setting an appropriate timeout period and the number of retries, but there's no option for like a default. Just doesn't matter if it's seen as healthy or not. Just keep sending requests to it. So anyway, a little frustrating, but trying to work through that.
Interesting. Does anyone have any comments on that?
And I'm hoping
just,
Mike comes up with like a state-of-the-art solution that can just be implemented and work.
Well, that's what we're working on. I mean, I have 3 like really hefty ARB nodes out there running now, and I'm working on the clustering part. But what I will say is, as a result of the testing I've been doing over the last 3 weeks, and again, this stuff is not easy. This is big boy stuff, right? Like these these nodes are heavy. They take a lot of time to do things, like taking it down 3 hours to bring it back. So like you're not dealing with, like an LP node where you can just stop and start this thing in seconds and things come back and you can test and do things. So like anything you do takes a long time for it to actually get the results you're looking for. But what I do know is, since I've been running these 3 nodes, 2 of them are offline, just kind of fail over scenario testing, but the one is running, and I have my entire org fleet on it, and I have a couple other, random orgs, just 1 or 2 nodes here and there testing it. And without any proxying or failover involved, that ARB node has been up for 3 weeks without an outage. And I think folks and again, as soon as I say it, our nodes are going to crash. But aside from Murphy working hard against us, the one node for 3 weeks have been up. There were a couple outages, and I think a lot of it stems from these, trying these complex failover scenarios. Like the software, if it's not configured right, you're going to run into problems, and it's real, brittle and frail right now. So we should be basically taking out any of the failure scenarios, just run a single node and allow folks to connect to it directly. And I think a couple other members of the community are doing the same thing, and they've had similar success with stability. So I think adding all the complexity and the moving parts in place are what's causing all of these chain reaction failures. So you gotta simplify the stack and then layer on as you start to perfect these methods. So the load balancing part is probably the most complicated piece, and we probably should leave that out for now until. So again, I think it goes back to our commentary when we started this whole ARP node thing, was buddying up, right? Like instead of trying to build failover, just have each org buddy up with another org somehow, or maybe buddy up with Alchemy or Infura or something, where you can still provide availability, but the ARB node isn't like the centralized place for it all. And it's complex, but once we get it right, then we can do it. But right now we're in that interim where we don't have the highly available failover scenarios worked out. So we can't have everyone dependent on that. And I'll just let everyone jump in there.
Is there an opportunity to go even one step further back when it comes to the failover? So rather than having some sort of failover system with a proxy and all these things, could we not do it one step back where we say, okay, your endpoint in your launch file for your actual node, could we not make an array or a list of endpoints that we would try and choose from and do the failover process within the actual Livepeer software? Because then you just have endpoints, and the Livepeer software then can fail over and say, hey, I didn't successfully get what I wanted. Let's move on to the next option that you've given me.
Typically the load balancing idea should be passive to the software, right? Like the software can't do everything. And again, its purpose is to take streams, process them and send them out, right? Like that's really what we want to focus Livepeer on. But infrastructure wise, you don't even need a load balance or a proxy at all, right? Like that's something that as an operator, you start to look at managing production environments and say, let's layer this stuff in. So like if you were to go all the way back, like you said, to single node, single org, or even just having an org point to one node, again, I think you're going to find, and I think some of the other orgs were pointing to the public RPC endpoint from Arbitrum, the arb1.arbitrum.io or whatever, the RPC URL. And it seems like they are running single nodes as well, because that's also very stable. So then that's more stable than like Alchemy or Infura, especially if you're load balancing. So I think the problem is too many layers, too many connection points with too many cascading failures, and you need to eliminate those. So go to a single node. If we pull the community ARB node out from under all of the layers and point directly to Arbitrum's RPC port, I can assure you, you will see a lot more stability. But it's not where we want to be, right? Because that's still a single point of failure. And if 100 orcs are pointing to it, then Livepeer is down, right? So we don't want that. We definitely need high availability. But if you want stability, you got to pull it back first. let the single node fail before we start worrying about high availability. Because again, I'm running for 3 weeks and I haven't failed yet on a single node, but I'm building in redundancy as I'm testing and scaling.
Very cool. Yeah, I think what you said is good. Any other last comments on that? We're going to move on to the Q&A in about 1 or 2 minutes here. So any last comments on that? We can always come back to this again, this topic.
I'll throw in that I've had pretty good results running Arbitrum on my own with Docker. Stay up and for a while, but it's got to have really good connection to L1. And I have been able to use ProxyD with that L1 connection and swap it out in real time without disrupting Arbitrum too much.
Yeah, Docker is implied. Like the binary, I've heard many war stories about it just taking over memory and just never stopping
Right.
and
Yeah, I
crashing.
think
So like
everyone's
with the
running
Docker
Docker.
stuff, it's very stable. I think Ryan Nightnote and I were talking about that this morning, that he switched over to Docker and he's had similar stability claims. So good call out, Elite.
Elite, you're not running a Geth node with it? You're using
Yeah, so actually I did start running Geth node along with it too. So I'm still trying to dial in that memory usage on Geth, as a matter of fact, but I had some issues this morning. But yeah, it's overall. I mean, if you use a stable or even two like hosted L1 endpoints, it's pretty stable. I mean, I've noticed some things. Let's say if L1's like giving you 429 responses or something, it doesn't seem like ProxyD wants to fail over in those cases. But if the port just becomes unavailable, then you're good. So one of the better ways to swap your L1 on your Arbitrum is to just update your ProxyD config and just recycle ProxyD. It's faster than letting it fail over on its own, and it's less risk because there's a small chance that port might be open and your Geth node's not actually synced up.
Yeah, see what I was doing in that case. I didn't run a Geth node, but I was actually looking at planning it and I spun something up. But the ultimate scenario there would be you need to put up health probes to put the whitelisted methods that you're going to call from Arbitrum. Like there's get gas price, get block number. There's a bunch of those ETH calls that go in. You need a health probe for each one of them. And you need static data so that when you make the call, you get the right response. And if any one of those nodes doesn't respond with that payload, you must fail over, right? Like
That is
that's the
smart,
only
yeah.
way to do it. That's the only
Rather
way.
than
Otherwise,
checking for
the
port
port goes up and
connectivity.
down, right? You won't know that, but you will know if payloads are coming back and forth. So those health probes are super critical. And we wrote up a document that wrote all of the tests for the curl requests for each of those whitelisted methods. So we posted that in the chat. So you put that in your health probes, and now you're up, man. You're not.
Thank you.
You're probably a little bit farther ahead than I am right now. So that's awesome.
That's really good. I'll look at that info. Thanks for doing that work. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Very cool. Okay, what we'll do is, this is clearly an in-depth topic, and it affects us all. So we'll wrap. I'll write this down as a topic we'll come back to, because there's other people that I'd like to get to that had mentioned that topic. What we're going to do now is we're going to shift gears, and we're going to head into the Q&A session for this week's water cooler chat, where we have Chase, Adam. I'm not sure if it's Adam or Chase Adam or Adam Chase, but what I'll do is I'll just get him to introduce himself. I will start off with one or two questions to get the ball rolling, and then we'll move into a community chat where everyone can ask questions about all topics. But I think today is going to be a lot about the new Explorer. So what I'll do is I'll hand it over now to Chase. Tell us who you are and what you do with Livepeer.
Thanks, Ted. Yeah, it's Chase. It's confusing because Adam has basically my last name, so yeah, it's very confusing. It happens all the time. But yeah, I'm Chase. So I've been working at Livepeer now for, and I'm sure you've seen me in random chats and stuff. I've been working at Livepeer now for, about 2 months, something like that. So yeah, I've been working on Explorer, the new version of Explorer for the most part since I started, and then like protocol design and some less user-facing things. So before this, I've been working in software for nearly 10 years now. Got my start in Android development and worked on Android apps at first, and then ended up switching more to like back end Spring Boot technologies, and then kind of worked my way through. I worked at Arizona State University for a little while, and then more recently started going down the startup rabbit hole. So did a couple startups, and then recently joined LivePeer after getting really interested in Web3 and what it has to offer to the world. So that's a little bit about my background. I've been working in Web3 now for about like 8 months. I really started researching and getting interested in it like late 2021, and really got interested in LivePeer around the time that I was like learning about all Web3, and thought that LivePeer had one of the most interesting use cases and like actual real world applications. So yeah, really excited to be working alongside all of you. But yeah, we recently launched the Explorer. I think you guys saw that. So definitely, Titan, I know you had a little bit of like thoughts on how you want to run it, but definitely open to questions about the Explorer, or just like generally about some like protocol things or stuff that we're working on. Can answer anything about that.
First and foremost, welcome, dude. That you're doing some awesome stuff on that dashboard. That looks really good. But I also like to comment that so you're a Java developer gone crypto. I've been in Java since '97, so I
Nice.
that's awesome that you're another developer with Java background. So I welcome you.
Cool. Yeah, Java's awesome.
Cool, very cool. Great to have you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come do a Q&A with us here. I'll do one question, which you kind of covered already, but I'll do that, and then we're gonna hop into questions. So, I guess, how did you hear about LivePeer? Like specifically, like where did you first hear it, and then what has been your introduction into it thus far? Like, did you apply for LivePeer? Did they reach out to you? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I actually heard about them. I did a like a boot camp for experienced Web 2 engineers to get them into like Web 3 and teach you like protocol design and security and Solidity. It's called Macro. Definitely can recommend that to anybody who's interested in learning more. They essentially have a program that you go through a 6-week course. It's about 20 hours a week ish. You're building out like projects. So you build out like a automated market maker, things like that. So definitely like a really cool program. But at the end, they had a bunch of connections to different companies, and LivePeer was one of them. So it was kind of like a short list of companies, and so started with that list and worked my way down. And I'd heard of LivePeer like in the process of going through, because I was just researching a bunch of companies in the space, like trying to figure out what exactly was the most interesting. But yeah, there was like a LivePeer had a connection with Macro, so that was kind of where that came from. And then obviously I saw looked at LivePeer, like what we were doing, and just got really interested in it. So
Very cool. Glad to hear that LivePeer has got the tentacles in those kind of programs where it can source good talent. So let's get into the meat and potato of this Q&A, which is about the LivePeer Explorer. So I'll start with the very first question about it, and then I'm going to open it up. So get your questions ready. Okay, tell us about the motivations of the new Explorer and where you are at with finalizing or in the development process.
yeah. So the original intent, obviously, you guys have used the Explorer in the past, and we got used to what the previous UI was. I joined and pretty much immediately started working on this. I know Adam, not me, but Adam spearheaded a lot of the UX behind it. But we essentially wanted to make the Explorer easier for delegators to be able to navigate, particularly in like the very complex like yield calculation and how that works. It was confusing before because you get all these numbers of like what the reward ratio is and all that, and then it's hard to understand like what exactly that means for the end user. And that's generally a problem I think in crypto, is that it's very built for technical people, but like less technical, it's a little harder. So anyway, that was the underlying goal behind some of those main changes, like the forecasted yield table, and then the charts as well on the homepage, just trying to bring a little more like transparency to the protocol, and help people like understand exactly what's going on, protocol health, things like that. And that was also why we kind of called an audible later in our epic and added that transactions table that you'll see at the bottom of the homepage. That was something we weren't really planning on doing initially, but ended up actually like executing on that, just again to show like protocol health and what's going on, to give transparency to everything. But yeah, definitely like we went into this with our own kind of vision of what we wanted to do, and obviously got feedback already from a lot of the community, but still open to feedback on what we built and like what's working, what's not working. Our timeline for releasing the beta, so we have that beta Explorer LivePeer. We actually are planning on releasing tomorrow. So before then, like today will be the last day for any kind of bug fixes. There's currently a bug on the main page with the charts, so we'll be fixing that. But other than that, we'll pretty much be wrapping that up and merging into main tomorrow and releasing that to like the general public. So.
Well, there you go. Titans, impeccable timing. Didn't even try, but timed it like that. So cool. Okay, well,
hot off the presses.
Okay, here we go. Let's open it up to the floor. Please just chime in with your question one at a time, please. Go ahead.
I'll let anyone else go first because I like to talk too much. So if anyone else goes, but if no one has a question, I do have one.
I'm sure people will have questions. Mike, why don't you start us off?
Okay, so there was a lot of conversation about like analytics, like Google Analytics and metrics collection, and we got into some cringy conversations about tracking people and all kinds of stuff. But just out of curiosity, are there metrics that are being collected about the users interacting with the current Explorer? And was there any consideration to adding metrics to the beta Explorer to track metrics? I mean, it may not be the cringy kind of metrics, but it can still at least be useful to understand behavioral patterns, user personas, and things along those lines. So anything along that line, did you guys take that into consideration?
Yes, we haven't we haven't added any metrics to the Explorer yet. Yeah, you're right. That is kind of like, especially in the Web3 world, it's kind of like frowned upon, especially the Google Analytics solution. I think like Mixpanel supposedly has better like data sharing policies, and so a lot of people now like lean more towards other solutions other than Google Analytics, just because
There's
everybody
client side
hates
stuff,
Google.
and then there's
Yeah,
server side stuff, right? Like, so I don't know if there's any
yeah,
like pixel feeds that you can kind of at least get
yeah.
some perspective. I don't know. I mean, I know it's critical for everybody, and I thought that might have been a motivation to create the new Explorer, was you saw something and analytic data that pointed you to doing this. So just curious.
Totally. And we actually do have Google Analytics on Explorer. We just talked about like how that can be modified. I actually have not seen the Google Analytics. We don't talk about it a lot yet, with like how we're tracking users and all that. But we do have Google Analytics integration in Explorer. We just haven't really gone into like what that looks like for us to operationalize that, and like you said, figure out how users are using the site. I do think that's really valuable, though. I think that's something that we need to do more on smaller projects like this. I obviously haven't been around LivePeer for that long to know exactly how we're planning on doing that in the future, but I definitely think it's a good point that like getting user feedback on this stuff is really important, just on like anonymous users that are using the site. But I'll definitely
Yeah, I
bring
mean,
that
you're
up
making
to
fixes,
Adam.
you're making bug fixes, you're changing things, and how do you know it worked, right? How do you know it's doing the
Totally.
right things? Are you getting the results you want? So cool, thank you.
Okay.
Cool. Any other questions?
Yeah. Any other questions there for Chase?
You've answered so many of my questions already. Go ahead, Elite.
Oh, well, I remember making a suggestion a bit earlier, and you had pointed me to you created like a new issue in the Explorer. So I just want to comment at some point, if I get a chance, I'll try to do some development on the Explorer. Um, try to contribute. But if there's any any information you can provide folks, anyone else who might be interested in contributing to Explorer. It took me a while to find the repository because I kept wanting to look in the main LivePeer repo. Eventually, I found it.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing. We used to have that like LivePeer JS repo, but yeah, for anybody who is looking to work on this stuff, I can definitely hop on a quick call and just like give you an intro into the structure of everything, and how it works and some of the main places that we made changes to recently. I can definitely help with that in general. And then we do have plans to add, like we have those issues in the backlog to add stuff like the performance scores, which, like we said, is kind of historically been a bit like inaccurate, I guess, or unstable. So I need to sync up with Rafal, who's been working on fixing a lot of that stuff and making it more consistent. So we'll see how that goes. So I'm not really sure where that stands right now, because I do think there still has been some instability from what I've seen, but I think we need to talk about that and see where it's at. But definitely open to anybody who wants to like help contribute to that stuff. I can definitely like give you a walkthrough of what the code looks like and all that.
If you guys record
feature
that,
to add.
yeah, if you guys record that walkthrough of setting up like a development environment, Authority Null and I are a glutton for documentation pain, and we've been posted 12 and 13 page articles and setting up LivePeer. So we'll have no problem taking a video walkthrough and creating a written document that describes those setup steps. But I think all projects, Catalyst, Mist, I mean, all of them need that, right? Like if we have that, everyone can start hacking on it right away and without having to go hunt and peck and find things. So that is a great thing if you can do.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. If I get into it, I'll write down what I find. I'm a little new to Node.js, but it seemed like a good way to get started because it also talks about graph queries and things. So there's so much data there, and you could build new features with.
Yeah, for sure. And we use Next.js, which is like it's pretty much the standard for a lot of like quickly built projects and really, really mature projects too. I think most people in the space love Next.js, so it's a good technology to work with.
Great. Any other questions we'd like to dive into about the LivePeer Explorer?
I feel like at one point, was there possibly going to be an option other than ENS names that people could use, or are we just like ENS and that's it? Is that final?
Yeah, that's final for now. What integrations would you have in mind if you did want to see that?
I personally am not aware of like any, but I just I miss seeing the names of a lot of orchestrators, and I don't know that even adding the ability to do it without an ENS, I don't know if it's the cost that's keeping people from changing it, but I just miss seeing the names, so that's the reason I asked. I mean, for
Yeah,
me
it makes
personally,
sense.
ENS works, but I was just curious. Like, now I'm like, I see like, payment by, to whatever address, and I'm like, I have no idea who that is, but it doesn't really matter. I was just more of a curiosity thing.
Yeah, I wish ENS wasn't so expensive, because they want to be like the backbone of a lot of things, but then it's prohibitively expensive for like a lot of people to use. But then again, yeah, it's like a domain name cost, I guess. But yeah, it's a lot of money for sure. Yeah, we don't have any plans right now for any like integrations with that currently. Yeah, we'd have to see what that would look like. I know like we've been doing some integrations more on the video side with Lens and like more on like a smart contract side. I don't really know how that works. I don't know if they really do. I guess they would. It's similar to ENS where they they have like a primary address that you associate your like lens profile with. But I don't think that would really apply to the Explorer, since it's kind of like, it's more like social. So, but yeah, we can definitely chat about that in the future.
And then I guess also, sort of tied in the past, the Explorer was, when it was slow, I think I remember someone saying that it was because of I forgot what we even used for the naming, what we used for names.
3D
Oh, okay.
box.
Yeah. I was told that was part of it, but it still seems, I mean, relatively slow on the beta. I don't know if it's on the servers it'll be on, but I was just wondering,
Well, I'm glad you brought
is
that
that
up,
just,
Papa Bear, because I was going to talk about that point too. The ENS names and the images that come down are downloaded from third-party sites. And when they are slow, I saw the Explorer starts to slow down, where you could see it in the network tab where it's downloading images from like these third-party sites. And if they're slow, it negatively impacts Explorer in terms of its ability to make REST calls and, all that different stuff. So Papa, I didn't mean to jump in. I was actually going to ask that question as you were finishing your first question. So I'm glad you brought it up.
well, I mean,
Yeah.
and even like if I click on an orchestrator, I mean, it can take like, I just did it now. I mean, it's like I'm still waiting for it to open, and seems like a long time. Like, you click on an orc and it's like, I mean, it could be 5 to 10 seconds for that page to open.
Yeah, you're totally
Is
right.
that just because it's pulling stuff from on chain, or I just don't know like how that
No,
works?
it's the external images. Like if your ENS name is coming from some slow web server somewhere, it's going to slow down the entire page load and any back end processing that's happening. And again, that's a tough challenge. So that's why I mentioned it, just because I don't know how you fix that unless you pull a copy of it in and host it on your web server. Like you pull the ENS image in and host it, but then it kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah, and just some background on that. So the way that Next.js works, it's like it was like the first like server side rendering front end like framework. So it does a lot of like server side calls. So when you like fetch a page, it'll make a bunch of calls to the GraphQL endpoints that we have for Arbitrum, and a lot of calls to like Infura, like directly from on-chain data. So there's just a lot of calls that get made. That's, in all honesty, that's
Right. So there's that.
that's
Okay.
what's
So
really
there's that.
slowing us down.
That's,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's a lot of calls that get made. So we do need to clean that up and make sure that like we're not making unnecessary calls. But there's just like a lot of data that gets fetched. Sometimes it's not even displayed on screen at the time. So like you're totally right. We definitely need to work on that. I spend a little bit of time on that. We need to clean that up for sure. But there's just it's, I guess the
I mean, like, it's not a
answer is
big deal for like,
yeah.
like if I'm just like, okay, I want to log into my, or, check out my profile or whatever. Okay, no big deal. But I just figure if someone new's coming through and they want to like click on a few different orchestrators, it's like it just
Yeah,
stop being painful trying to go through that whole list.
totally.
Well, that's an area where
Yeah.
the community can help, right? If we got that development environment, we can trace and profile it. It might be somewhere where we can say, hey, look, you make 5 calls here, but if you defer those 2 calls to another button click or something, then you can fetch that data later. So that's stuff that, when you're building a new Explorer, you're not going to see all those little nuances until you start deploying it and get that feedback. So where you are is probably expected at this point in your life cycle. So nothing bad, but it definitely can be annoying.
Yeah, we'll definitely need to work on that in the future for sure. Thank you for bringing that up. That's definitely something that I've also seen, and like I said, I spent a little bit of time working on that, but sometimes those are hard to trace because it's hard to trace where the dependencies are, and yeah, sometimes you like fetch the same data in one place that you do in another place. It's just uh, there's a lot of data being fetched in general, so we definitely need to fix that up.
It makes sense.
About the fetching of the data, couldn't you build it so that, because right now, like if you click on an orchestrator, it shows a loading page, and it obviously waits for all the data to come in before it displays it all. But maybe wouldn't it be better to maybe display everything that is currently loaded already, and then just have the little spinners over top of the one thing that might be taking a while, like maybe the way per pixel or something that it's taking a long time to query?
He wants React suspense in there, man.
Yeah, we could definitely do that, and we should do that. Like I was saying, we pull things from the subgraph, which is usually a bit faster than it's less up to date, but the responses are faster. Like the network latency is lower, and then we also pull stuff like for that round status indicator on the main page. We pull that directly from on-chain data because it's just slower. Like the GraphQL endpoints, we use the graph, which takes a little while to index everything. It basically listens to like on-chain events and then indexes all those and then provides like a GraphQL endpoint. So that just immediately means it takes like 10 seconds or 30 seconds or something to index everything that's happening live. So we pull some stuff from like directly from on-chain data. But yeah, we definitely should do like most modern companies now do like React suspense or something, and they have like loading indicators, like the little skeleton thing you see that kind of like makes it look nice. Like here's where data will be. We don't have this yet, but it's like coming. But yeah, that would definitely be the approach we would take is like rendering some kind of skeleton page and then like filling in the data that we get while it comes in.
Yeah, and that's not an easy task, by the way. So if that were to be implemented, that's going to take some time to get that in. So I wouldn't expect anything in the near term on that, right?
Yeah,
How
that would take a bit of time.
how dare you tell me things aren't easy? I demand instant solutions.
You want it
I
now.
want it yesterday. I want it yesterday, Titan. Not today. I want it yesterday.
Actually, so yeah, one more thing that actually I just noticed because I'm clicking around on here. Like, why I mean, I notice a lot of times I've got to refresh the page to see like the current blocks. Like if I'm moving around within the Explorer, um, like, and if I had it open from like, the day before and I come back, it's still on the same block, even if I'm moving around. Like, is there a way that that can be um, not updated like in real time, but some sort of like auto refresh on that? Because sometimes I look and I'm like, oh, there's still this much time left in the round, and I'm like, oh no, we're in the next round.
Oh, that's interesting. That should be querying. That should be querying every like 30 seconds or something and updating.
Because I just saw it just actually happened to me right now. I had a page that
I've seen that too,
I
where
was
the
clicking on
tab
it.
is idle. Like you go away from the tab for a while, but then when you come back to it, like it's still on the current state, even though the world has changed beyond that tab, right?
But even if you click around, like within like the Explorer, like you like open up a couple different Orchestrator pages, and then and then you like and then you go to the overview. It's still showing like the where you were, I guess, when you left off the last time you either came to the page or refreshed the Explorer.
Papa Bear
I'll
is the
put in a bug
ultimate
for
beta
that.
tester. He's
Yeah,
the
I'll put in a
ultimate
bug
beta
for that.
tester. He's got 5 tabs open. He's got refreshing going on. Like he's gonna hammer the hell out of your stuff, man. He'll find any issues if you have them for sure.
No, I wasn't even. I'm not looking for issues. I was like, this is just from using it, just like just
No,
using
you
like
just use the
yeah,
system. You're a user.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
exercising it. So that's why I
right,
said you're a
yeah.
good beta tester because you're in there hitting every button, switch, filter,
Oh
click.
yeah,
You're
no,
doing
this
all of
is
that.
just things I happen to notice. Yeah, I'm not in there like poking around trying to bug test it. But it's something that I've noticed. It was on the old Explorer too, the same issue. And like, if you look at the performance chart, like you can click all around that thing and it doesn't update unless you do a refresh on that.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely take a look at that. Yeah, that's definitely a bug. I'll put one in right now.
Cool.
All right. I have some like a suggestion here and there. Where's the best place to put feature suggestions or these kinds of things, so that it reaches you and Adam or the team that could look at it quickly? What's the best way? Is it GitHub issues? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it depends. I think GitHub issues are a good way. Sometimes those get lost in the sea of all the GitHub issues. So like I think for this, it may be good to throw it in that same like Discord thread that we've had. There's a lot of context in that Discord thread, so it might help like frame things a little bit better. So that one in like the general chat is probably a good place for now for some of the feature requests, and then we can kind of like have the community talk about them and make sure that like everybody gets their say before we throw it in a GitHub issue. Because sometimes the issue with the GitHub issues is that somebody creates one and then there's really not a lot of like feedback loops. It's just like one person's opinion, not necessarily like everyone's. So yeah, I think that Discord chat would probably be a good place for it.
You almost need like threads inside of threads so you could just like per feature you got another thread under the thread.
Yeah, user feedback's hard for sure.
That's a full-time job, right? Like that's somebody's got to be out there on top of that stuff all day, like pushing out the valid stuff and kicking out, rejecting the the invalid stuff. Holy crow! Open source that's like the bane of a lot of projects.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Chase, how much time do we have left with you? I know I asked for about 30 minutes. We've been at this for about 30, 35 minutes. How much time do you have left?
Yeah, I can do like 10 more minutes.
Cool. Do we have any more questions on the Livepeer Explorer? I have other general questions that are more about you and things like this. But do we have any more general questions about the Explorer?
Yeah, I know this has been pushed aside a little bit. You were talking about how performance metrics may come into play eventually when things are a bit more stable. Have you thought about how that will look? Like how that will actually play into maybe the first page, or how people will be sorted based on performance as well as, combining the ROI and everything else? Or is that not really a priority right now?
That's a really good question. We haven't really gone into we haven't really talked about that too much, just because we've kind of dismissed the current performance metrics as like not being a good indicator for like actual performance, and it's off-chain data, which like there's kind of this like purity about on-chain data and using that. So like I don't think that necessarily means that it's bad, but I do think that it's not super reliable. It's only coming from like Livepeer hosted servers, so it's like semi-centralized, pretty centralized. So we haven't really talked about that too much yet, to be honest. We've definitely talked about having like some kind of badge. I think the way that we imagined it was like a badge next to orchestrators on that, on like the main table that indicates like you're a high performer in a single region. That was definitely feedback we got, I think, from Virus about how like it's not your global score, it's really like a regional score that's the most important. Like you can just be good in one region and we can show that. So anyway, that was kind
badges are great ideas. Badges are great because it gives that visual cue to the person who's going to stake their LPT. Oh, here's an indicator on this guy that makes him unique, and I like that. That badge idea sounds really good.
Yeah. So I think that's the approach that we've talked about, and then having like I thought it'd be really cool to have like a graph of historic performance with like all the orchestrators on one table, like 100 lines, just going crazy. I thought that'd be really cool, but it might be
I
overwhelming.
love that. Well, a slider, like you could slide it over time, left and right, and see that bar chart change based on the org performance. I love that.
Yeah, so we'll see where that where all that goes, but definitely the badge thing I think would make it like pretty clear, like this person is a high performer in this region. That's kind of what we added already with the orchestrator page, and they have like that top regional score. That was like the first step in that, but I'd imagine we can do that a little bit better. So definitely any feedback you have on approaches that we can take, feel free to drop it in that Discord thread, and we can definitely like talk through those things.
Awesome. That's
In a
super
similar vein, though, I was thinking along the same lines, but like I know today where you could go into ENS and set like a description and have like some HTML in there and stuff. But is there any thoughts about an orc brand page where it's on-chain data maybe tied to the orc registry, but it's like an image, a title, maybe a couple, key orchestrator selling points or something where we could just go in, update that in a CLI or something, and then save it on chain. And then when you click on the orc, maybe there might be just if you define it for your orc where you want to go in there and say, hey, I'm unique because I'm solar farm. I'm unique because I'm load balanced around, the whole globe, or whatever your brand point is. It might be a way to put more metadata into the Explorer that gives folks more insight about the uniqueness of a org so they can make good choices, right?
We can do that with ENS, right?
Yeah, we can
Or
already
you
do
just
that.
yeah.
No, I get the ENS part with that, and that's fine, right? But you got to it's kind of clunky. You got to go in and tweak some HTML, and it's just hard. Like I just figured if you just put the text in there, the Explorer could render it in a nice way without you having to do all that clunky stuff. And again, it's tied to your orc in the registry is the other part, right? Where it's on-chain data tied to the orc, and all the metadata is kind of together. It's not like, oh, you got to go to ENS for this. You got to go to, Livepeer and Fura chain and Graph protocol for that. Like it's just pulling it together is harder. Again, it's just one of those random.
But Mike, I just went to your orchestrator. You don't have a description under yours. Is why is that?
Yes, that's right. Because I never went back and updated. The gas prices were really high at the time, so I just didn't do it. So I'm waiting. I probably should have been doing it by now, but you're right. I am lazy on that. I got the name set up, but I didn't do the image and the description. I don't have a logo yet. That's the other part. That's another. The marketing side of Zodap is woefully behind.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, a part of that feature request too is maybe having instead of the ETH domain names as the name, but rather go back to where we can customize just a name we want.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up as well. That'd be really nice, just for branding
Again,
sake.
that goes back to my point of having it tied to the orc registry, not ENS, right?
But under ENS, there is an empty field where we could use it for a profile name. I think I may have mentioned it somewhere, but again, these are all feature requests that like we have to put in a place where people like Chase and Adam can quickly go through this, figure out what's important, what's easy, what's hard, and streamline these requests.
Yeah, and just on that point, one final thing is, yeah, like you're right. There is a feature on with ENS. You can basically have like arbitrary key value pairs. So we can have like a org.livepeer key with like whatever your username is. That we can definitely add that. ENS is pretty flexible on that stuff. So if we do want to, instead of having like the .eth name, having like our own custom username, we can do that. It's just like, yeah, it's a matter of how, implementation detail, I guess, and what exactly you want that name to look like. So if you guys do think that's something you want to see, definitely put that in the chat. We can talk through all those things.
Very cool. Okay, what I'm going to do is we've talked a lot about the Explorer. I'm sure if we want to follow up, we can follow up in that thread. I want to end off just with some more general questions before I let you go in about 5 minutes here. So, Chase, as you've been working with Livepeer, what has been your biggest achievement so far, and what has been your biggest challenge so far in your position?
Yeah, I think my biggest achievement has been working on the Explorer stuff. I haven't worked on like a production grade protocol team before, so it's been like interesting to work on like smart contract development and how that looks in the real world, versus how it looks on blogs and like how people make it out to be. It's like it's very methodical, and so that's been really interesting to like see how that actually operates in the real world. I think one of the biggest achievements has just been learning about all that stuff. I've also been working on the side, which you guys may have seen. I've been working on the side on a project to make like an open source orchestrator on like the stuff that I've seen based on Kubernetes. So that's been a project I've been working on for a little while. It's not quite like production ready yet. There's still a lot of like little tweaks to be done. But that's been something I've tried to like put together a lot of the best practices that I've seen from a lot of people and like condense it into an open source project. So
Is that
that's
Helm
something.
charts or is that something else when you were talking
Yeah,
Kubernetes?
yeah, Helm charts. So yeah, that's
Cool.
something I'm hoping to like condense that into like a project that people can look at and like collaborate with and talk through, because sometimes this stuff is, you talk about some of these like implementation details and they're hard to, like, you don't really know. It's a lot of manual configuration. So I think like the Helm charts could be helpful for the community.
Just for Explorer or other areas of the projects?
For like an orchestrator. So
Oh,
building out,
wow.
yeah. So I'll definitely keep you guys updated when that's like ready
So
for
the thought is that
release.
orchestrators would be able to use this to set up a Kubernetes cluster to run their orchestrators. Is that
Yeah, the idea would be like just being able to copy what I'm currently doing. So the open orchestrator.eth, there's like an orchestrator that I've been running for a little while. That's the code behind it's all
Oh,
like
that's
open source.
you.
Yeah. So
Nice.
I'm hoping that can like help here in the next like I think few weeks. It'll be ready for like release to the world. Just this stuff is really complicated, as you guys all know. So I'm just making sure that everything's like baked and ready to go on that. But yeah, we'll definitely share that with you guys, and would love feedback on that. Um, yeah.
Very cool. Okay, we're gonna end off on one last question, and it's a very open question, very broad, and completely your opinion. So this is not the opinion of Livepeer or anyone else. This is just your opinion. And what I want to hear is, what is your opinion on Web3? Just the generic term Web3. Is it pie in the sky? Is it not as revolutionary as they say? Or do you believe that this is, like, what is your opinion going forward into this new movement?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of like narrative behind it, and it obviously has changed a lot in the past few months. And it kind of shows you like Web3 is a loaded term. I do think like Web3 is like applying cryptography in unique and cool ways. So like I think that is the future of the internet. So I definitely, obviously I bought into the hype because I'm really interested in Web3 and Livepeer, and like went down that rabbit hole. I do think there's a lot of projects, in my opinion, that will not be around in a while, because there's just a lot of repetition. A lot of people are like forking other projects or doing things more for like pure profit purposes, as opposed to like giving back to the community. Obviously, I think Livepeer is a really awesome project that does have those like core fundamentals that we've been around for a while, like the really stable, like mature team. So definitely like excited about Livepeer's position in the Web3 world. I think that Web3 in general, there's a lot of hype projects, as like everybody knows. There's a lot of like people getting scammed. I think all that stuff goes away, hopefully over time, or like we at least mature out of that. I think it's just a really early technology. But I do think there's like a lot of potential and just like novel applications for cryptography. So that's like what I'm super excited about, is just seeing where everything goes. Like even with Livepeer, we're talking constantly about like novel ways that we can essentially, like in the end, it's like just how can we apply cryptography in this cool, unique way? So it's like everybody has their own private public keys. Like how can we use that to make a better internet? So that really excites me. That's something that I've been really happy that I like get to work on and contribute to. There's just like really interesting problems that come out of that, and you try to like make everything private, or at least like make everything owned by users. So definitely excited about those next few months. I think we'll have some like really interesting stuff coming out that you'll all be excited about, with like the transition in some of our products, and just like embracing the Web3 world a bit more. I think there'll be some really cool stuff that comes out of that. So super excited for the next few months.
Very cool. Chase, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to do a little Q&A. We get to learn more about the Livepeer team with these sessions. People on the internet can watch this, and people here get to watch this and get to learn more about you. So thank you so much for joining, and you're more than welcome to stick around to the end. Obviously, you can head out, but we're going to be probably continuing our discussion with Arbitrum endpoints and all these kinds of things. So on behalf of the community, thanks again for coming.
Cool. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and definitely looking forward to chat more with you guys over the next few months.
Very cool.
Thanks, Chase.
Cool, man. Welcome to the community. We love.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, cool. Well, what we'll do is we'll continue on with the conversation we left off with, which was about community ARB nodes. Okay, let me just check my little reference here. The other people that were asking, we had Garden State Node asking about it, but we also had Frank. Frank, you talked a little bit about Arbitrum nodes. Could you, if you're interested, explain to us what you're experiencing and where your pain points are, and tell us about your topic.
Yeah, sure. So actually, I'm using on all our nodes almost only the node from FTK. That's running fine, great, except sometimes there is a fail, and I put the proxy on all the nodes, but it didn't work actually. So that we lose all the stream each time there is a fail. And sometimes when there is a fail, I try to go on the public RPC, but I have some difficulty most of the times to keep them up. So I have a question: which configuration are you using with the public RPC block pooling interval? I don't know, 10, 20, 30, I don't know what is working for you. And also thanks to FTK and Mike for the work they do on the RPC.
I could say for myself, I just have it at the default block pulling interval, which I believe is every 5 seconds.
You're saying for the using the off-chain one, you're using the default.
Off-chain, what do you mean off-chain?
Oh, I thought that was what
Yeah,
Frank was
the
asking
public
about
RPC.
Sorry,
the
I
public
have
one,
some
the public not.
yeah. What you said, Titan, about the block pooling interval you are using?
On all of my nodes, I'm using Fort Koonsman public node as the endpoint, and all of mine are just set to the default. So I have 7 nodes pointing, and they're all, I believe the default is 5 seconds. Or 5, whatever that means.
Which is fine for that because there's no rate limiting, but on the if you're using what I think Frank was asking about is the public off-chain RPC.
Off-chain labs.
If you go with off-chain labs, yes, then you're going to run into issues with rate limiting and having too many requests and things like that. I forget what the default polling is, if it's 5 or if it's 10, but I find like you want to go like 10, 12, something like that on the public one, but it's still not perfect using the that one.
Yeah,
It'll
I don't
work for a while, but it doesn't like won't continue to work.
I don't
Okay.
know how the public RPC works exactly. Sometimes I'll get rate limited on one node and not the other, and sometimes it's like an instant rate limit no matter the block polling interval. Specifically on my LAX node, the public RPC gets rate limited really quickly. So I don't know if they have like a pool of nodes and some of them are limited differently than others, or how that works.
I've seen the exact same behavior, so I don't have a solution for that, but I
It
can
may
say
be
it's
rate limited by region, not necessarily by person.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
I think too, because we have the same problem sometimes with Alchemy or Arbitrum node. one node reaches a limit and one other sometimes on the same computer, another node don't reach the limit. So it's strange.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know. I don't have an answer for you other than to say that if I'm using the public one, I do have to keep an eye on them because they will. So again, sometimes it's right when you first start up, and other times they will run for days, no problem. So I can't figure out what it is that's causing it.
Well, the other thing to mention here, again, this is all theoretical. We still have yet to prove this, but we're still under the assumption that there might be something wrong with the block polling, the block watcher. Like a lot of these errors we're seeing is coming from the block watcher go inside of Livepeer. And like when we're looking at RPC nodes, sometimes we don't see issues on RPC nodes, but the block watcher is spitting out errors, right? Like so we might be seeing more than just one thing here, right? Like rate limiting, block watching, polling intervals, and then potential defects. I think there's a whole lot of things at play here.
Yeah, I've also noticed like the further I am from the RPC, I'm using the more block the further I seem to be behind in blocks. If I do like a restart, if I restart the node, it'll and more errors will come. Like the Singapore one will have more errors, but if it's especially if it's pulling something from New York. So I've noticed that the proximity to the RPC point seems to play a role in how reliable it is too.
I never even thought of that.
I wouldn't have thought it was a big deal, but I noticed that like the LA and Singapore have the most issues if they're connecting to an RPC that's far away from them. Like if I'm trying to do like LAX from Germany, I'll see more errors coming through. They're not always fatal. I mean, most of them aren't fatal, but there's more like block polling issues and things like that, or block watcher errors.
For the same reasons we want to be close to the ingest nodes, the same reasons apply for block polling, right?
It makes sense. It was something that I just didn't think it was that critical. And I don't know how critical it is or not, but it is. There is a noticeable difference if you're further away.
Well, the one thing that's not clear from the block watcher code is that there's two types of timeouts. One timeout is a connection timeout. How long does it actually take for me to connect to the node itself? And then the other timeout is what they call a read timeout. How long, once I'm connected, does it take for me to read that payload coming back from the node? Like if I send a block request, how long does it take for that to come back? And those usually are settings in software that you can configure. So in Livepeer's case, how long does it wait before it gives up on that RPC call? How long does it wait before it fails to connect? And they're probably using default settings of their Go client. And if that's the case, we could probably put a pull request up to say, let me in my environment say how long I'm willing to let Livepeer wait. Let me say if I know I'm in Singapore and my RPC nodes in Chicago, it's going to be slower to connect and it's going to be slower to respond. But don't give up, just wait. But let me tell it how long to wait. And I think those are probably configs that are worthwhile if we're looking at this. But again, that could be one of 5 things that have to happen to make it stable. But that's definitely something we should be looking at. But it's not clear with the current logs what's happening.
There you go. Fort Koonsman, when you get that proxy D or some sort of proxy setup finished, are you going to incorporate other people's nodes that they want to submit to, I guess, this like pool of nodes? Or is this going to be a completely federated style of thing? Oh, and he just left.
Oh, tough question. He's out of here.
Oh.
He was like, I'm not answering that,
man. I plead the fifth.
Well, that's all right. Okay,
I
well,
think the plan was for him to run the nodes so that he he doesn't have to rely on someone that may or may not be reliable. But if the failover works properly, then maybe that's not as big of an issue.
right. Well, there you go.
Yeah, but Titan, as a node operator, right? You want, if I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to move my nodes over to the community node. What I'd like to see is, and again, I think this is part of his grant, is I'd like to see a dashboard that shows how long has it been up, like how many errors occurred, like what are the system resources, is it 100% utilized? Like, just want to see some metrics to see it's healthy before I make the switch. But if I do make the switch, again, I might say, as an operator, I want to send some of my, like, I might still be comfortable with Infura, right? Like I have a certain amount of requests I can send there, and I know if I send 30% of my traffic to Infura and 70% to the ARB node, I can remain stable. And I think those kinds of choices are still going to be left for the operator to say, what kind of high availability do I want to pay for? And is it critical for me? If I'm running a single node and I'm pointing to the ARB node, the community node, that's going to be fine. Or maybe I have a single Alchemy or Infura and I use that, that's fine. But if you got, like I was running 20 orcs and transcoder combinations out there, it's like, that's not going to work on the community node, right? And I think it's unfair for the community, for me as an enterprise. As a result, I can still use some of it, but I think it's up to me to make it enterprise scale. Like, I don't think it's up to Fort Koonsman to do that.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's there you go. I like it. I like the conversation around the ARB node. We only got 15 minutes left, so I'm going to hop into some other topics. So I hope the ARB node conversation has mostly answered most people's questions. The first thing I wanted to quickly touch on is, so everyone has a stage moderator badge now. This wasn't the case prior to the new reorg of Discord, which might make things.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Actually, this is exactly what I wanted Papa Bear to test. Papa Bear, could you right-click on me and move to audience and then invite me back up to stage? Just see if it works.
Okay, let's try it. Look at that. And then I invite you back up. What do I do? Click on you. Wow, look at that.
Okay, cool. All right.
Pretty cool.
So that originally I was the only stage moderator, so I was the only one with abilities. But I was planning on, starting to introduce other people to run these. So like even Papa Bear, I want to invite you at some point to maybe do next week's water cooler, where you can moderate. I don't know if I'm going to be around, so this might be a good opportunity to get other people in the hot seat. Obviously, you'll have to accept or decline my invitation. But the idea was, I was asking Shan if I can get other people to do this, because otherwise I'm the only one with stage moderator abilities. I don't know who did it, but obviously everyone gets it now. So I'm not sure if this is a good thing or a bad thing, because now everyone can just kick everybody. But please don't. That will ruin the whole situation.
I have the power.
Please don't just randomly kick people. I don't think most people will. I think it's pretty easygoing. I don't.
Can I kick myself? That's the problem. That would be the real problem.
Yeah, you can. I don't know who gets this though. Is it orchestrators? Is it members? Is it everyone? So, because I don't want anyone to like ghost in here and then to screw us over. But orchestrators should be given this ability anyway. Yeah, that's great. Okay, everyone has it.
Cool feature.
So for now on, it might be nice just to start rotating through people that are interested in running these conversations. I've been doing it for about a year now, which is great. But empowering the community involves them doing other leadership roles. So those are just my thoughts.
Hey, Titan, quick question. Can I actually schedule water cooler chats? Like, could I say, I want to set up not the weekly one, but I want to do maybe a RPC water cooler chat one-time event? Is that something we can do, or is it just while this event is happening, we can do these things?
I don't know. Why don't you scroll to the top on the left under it says 5 events? If you click on that, if you have a button at the top that says create event, then you have the ability to create stuff. Do you see
I
that?
don't have that ability.
So
I don't see that either.
okay.
No.
Okay,
So we can't create. That's fine. We can't schedule them, but we still, once it's live, we can at least moderate.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I still have the create function. I think my request, I never ever heard back from my ask, but clearly they did something. So everyone's got stage moderator ability, but creating events is still for community admins, I think. So, well, whatever. Just let me know when you want to create one. Just text me.
Cool. Thank you.
Just
I will.
message me the details, and the nice thing is it can be anywhere. So you can either schedule it for the stage, you can schedule it for the water cooler voice chat, or you can schedule it.
Cool.
You can schedule it like in your office hours. You can also schedule it elsewhere, so you can just have a link pointing to any endpoint you want. So if you want
Oh, cool. Well, that makes sense. They have those Zoom meetings in the other one, so
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah. So if you do have an event request, please just let me know and I'll throw it in there.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. And now you guys have moderators, so you can come into the stage if you want, or whatever. But in the stage, you can't share your screen and you can't share your video, so it's just voice, which is interesting. Okay.
So that actually might not work for Mike, but either way, can I jump in with, I want to bring up your topic, Titan, because Marco's here, and I know, I mean, if that's okay, that about the pixels
Yes, please.
processed, or did you want to go a different direction?
No, please do.
I just didn't want Marco to leave because I think last time I wanted to ask Marco something, and he was gone by the end. I don't know. In the Dash thing, I was trying to create a dashboard that uses the pixels process times the price per pixel, just to get a, like, how much work have we done and what should we get paid using that metric versus using like the tickets that we've received. I was actually kind of just curious to see if they matched up. Marco built a query for it, made a query for it where it used the what you use the ticket Livepeer payments. What was it? Let me just pull it up exactly. Using the Livepeer transcoding price. For some reason, when we used Livepeer transcoding price, I mean, the number just came out just like nothing even, like, I don't know what number was coming up. It was just nothing to do with, like, it wasn't even close to what it should be. But when I took out transcoding price and manually put in, like, what am I paying, and just swap that out, the numbers came out pretty close to what most of us use now for the daily income. And I was just wanted to get Marco's thoughts on any idea what you think might be the reason that if you use the Livepeer transcoding price metric, it just gives some weird value versus like actually manually putting in, I'm charging, this much. And I don't know if Marco's listening still or if he's still here, but maybe I should have asked him that, or maybe we should have got him up first. Oh, there he is. Okay.
To be honest, I have no clue why that is.
So it's very strange to you then too, right?
Yeah, it might be something to do with Grafana. It's not really a tool meant to do calculations with, but I haven't really looked into it yet.
Okay. So yeah, I was just that was just, I don't know, it just seems so strange to me. I was like, how does it work in one place
Well,
but it doesn't work in another?
just for folks listening, right? Like, we all want to know. Go look at a year timeline or a week timeline or even a day timeline or a month timeline. I want to see how many minutes did I actually transcode and how much is that worth in terms of potential payout, right? Like, it should be a fixed amount. We know we transcoded X and we had price per pixel set to this, and now we get a value amount, right? And then we can compare that to what were the ETH payouts at the same timeline? What were the ETH payouts, so that we can say, okay, here's what I did in work, here's what I actually got paid, and then we can trend that over a year or a month, and we can compare it to this month versus last month, and those kinds of metrics are important when you're looking at profitability, right? You're looking at your profit and losses. These are critical, right? Like, where is the money coming from? Where is it? So is it a stake problem, right? Do I need to get more stake? That's why I'm not getting enough work. Or is it, so again, you want to make business decisions based on these graphs, and we just haven't found the right mix of metrics. Maybe the metrics are wrong. There's some issues in collecting, or maybe it's just a limitation in the tool, but we're struggling here.
Oh, sorry. And Marco, the other question I had relating to this is, I use the sum increase. Is there how do I make it so that, or I mean, you don't have to answer this now, but I don't know if there's something that maybe you can help me with, where if it'll show the time period that I have Grafana set to. Is that something that you think that metric supports, or is that do you use do you use the rate function? I just don't
I
know
have
how to
to look
make
into
those
it.
work.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, I have to look into it more. I'm not sure right now.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I'd like to be able to just see it over like whatever period of time I want to see, rather than I just have it set to a day right now, because that was all I could figure out how to do. But I'll post about that in the dashboard.
Yeah, that's good.
Thing. All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Papa Bear or Marco.
Yeah.
How do you can you curl these metrics? Like, can you like, how do you query them? Where do you query them? Is this all done in Prometheus? Like,
well, the data is coming from Prometheus and then showed in Grafana. I mean, as far as I know, I mean, it's a metric that's just that Livepeer exposes.
Right. So, and then
I don't know. I don't know anything about how you would curl it or anything. You need someone else more advanced than me to answer that.
where can I get a list of all the things, all the metrics you can get from Prometheus? Is there like a list?
Yeah, if you go to the Explorer on your data source, when you click your data source and you click Explore, it brings you to a page where you can start writing queries. And if you hit like Control Spacebar, there's even a query builder depending on which version of the product of Grafana you're using. But if you're using like 8.x, they don't have it. But in the 9.x version, they have a tool where you can just like using Grafana like build metrics like using their UI widget. Whereas today's version, you can go in and you have to actually type out the raw query and like generate it. But if you hit like Control Spacebar in that window, it'll show you like it'll pre-populate all the possible metrics there, and then you can just choose one and say sample the data and see what you have, and then you could use that for like a curl to actually get it.
Yeah, because I'm using Python to try and curl these metrics to do accounting for my transcoders. Trying to find a more reliable way to do accounting. I don't know if this is gonna be it, but yeah.
You heard
It seems
me,
like that'd be the most
my little
accurate way.
spiel
I
about
mean,
this dashboard, right? Like it's getting the metrics and coming up with a good dashboard, but you're trying a different angle, which is go to the raw metrics and start calculating yourself. So if you find a way, I'm gonna be happy to hear, because we're all trying to figure out the P&L of this stuff.
So in Prometheus though, is there like, can you curl or at least query the pixels transcoded per IP address or per transcoder?
There's definitely metric data that will give you the numbers, and also you can filter based on targets. So like you could go in and say, I want all, the sum of some Livepeer count, right? And then say where and node ID equals like whatever your orchestrator node is on, or the server name, like there's, or you could do it by like Ben and I were playing with the job name. So like in Prometheus, you define the Prometheus config and you'll have like the scrape name. They say it's job name. But if you put a unique job name in there, you could use that as a filter in your metrics, right? You can go in and say, oh, these metrics were from, Prometheus scraper, London Titan node 1, right? That's the scraper name and the job name. And then that would be a unique way to filter out your metrics based on the source it's coming from.
Titan, how are you doing it now? Like, what are you currently? Because like the transcoders don't spit out the same. Can you even get metrics from a transcoder? I mean, is that how are you getting the metrics that you're
You
using?
can.
So
from the transcoder, separate transcoder.
Yeah, so the way I calculate, so I've been diving through live pools, open source stuff on GitHub, trying to figure out how Nico does his accounting, and it's very tough. I can't really figure it out. And he has a forked version of Livepeer from like a long time ago, so I didn't want to use his stuff anyway. It's quite outdated. And I don't really feel like running a whole forked version of Livepeer to run Titan Node Pool. I'd rather build something that can just build on completely separate and on top of the standard Livepeer distribution, so that when there's new critical updates, I'm not hurrying to make new like, I guess like compiled versions. Like, I'd rather just have it read what is available, right? And so
That's right.
Right now,
a thin layer on top of the current software versus altering the software and having to be the maintainer of the software. That is not where you want to be.
Yeah, so that's what Livepool does. It's a forked version of Livepeer, and it hasn't been updated since 0.5 point like 2.8. Yeah, and so I'm just trying to, and then on top of that, then I can build a whole bunch of different customized functionality, like uptime multipliers and all this fancy stuff. So right now, all I'm doing literally is just reading the logs and searching for the IP address and then how many segments they've transcoded. So I'm literally
the IP address of the transcoder
the
transcoder.
Because
you're doing it right.
Because I can see who's registered to my orchestrators through their IP address, so I can easily just search through the logs that Livepeer spits out and just go, hey, okay, well, how many segments has this person transcoded? Which is great because it's very quick, and every hour you just rotate the logs and there you go, right? But the problem is segments. What rendition of what resolution is that segment, right? Is it a 720p, a 480p? Like that, I literally just took an average and was like, okay, like I don't know what the resolution is. I don't know what the frame rate is.
Frames per second. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what the frame rate, and I don't even know the duration of the segment. Is it 8 seconds? Is it 2 seconds? Like, Titan Node accounting is quite jank right now. Like, it doesn't. It's not actually good. It was just me testing out stuff. So I was gonna instead read the profile name, right, and then assign the amount of pixels to the profile name, because you can see that's in the logs too, right? So I literally, as I started being like, okay, cool, like this person's doing 720p 480p as a profile name. Okay, I know exactly what that's worth. Then all of a sudden they made this whole new profile called low bitrate, and I'm like, well, I don't know what that means. Like, how many pixels is that? And then when I asked, everyone was like, oh, we don't know. And I'm like, oh man, like, okay, maybe this isn't gonna work for accounting. So I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to, like, if there's already built-in metrics through Prometheus or the monitor flag, that I could just curl the IP address and the amount of pixels they've transcoded in the last 1 hour, right? That would be all I need.
So it has client IP, but that is node ID. I wonder if that would work. I don't know if, like, if you can pull like the transcoder, like per transcoder.
Right. So if I can't pull per transcoder, then it's flawed. Like, I can't. There's no, because I have to be able to say. Because I can't just say, oh, this is how many pixels I've transcoded on the orchestrator node, or on the, I have to separate it out per transcoder.
That might be why he forked it. I mean, if you could narrow your search of his forked code, you might be able to see, did he fork the transcoder metrics collection? Because that way you could look at it and say, well, I'll just use his metrics and then add my own. That might be a little easier to fork than, everything.
But then this just comes back to the point, like, maybe it's just easier to read the logs, because as the logs come out, it has, like, if it's on Vibrosity 6, it tells me the duration that the segment came in as. It told me who transcoded it, how fast they transcoded it, and what profile it was. So that's all the information I need, right? It's just they came up with this low bitrate profile, and I'm like, I don't know what that means. I don't know how many pixels that is. Or maybe I just ignore those ones and say, those are just freebies to tighten node because I don't know what they're worth. But, or some sort of
looking through the logs here, see. So, I mean, I guess you look up the remote transcoder ID and then you pull from there. That's
and because it makes it really simple, because then I pull all the metrics from one log file every hour and then rotate it. So it makes it like pretty easy, but I just wondering, there's something built in already to Livepeer. But if I can't search per transcoder, then it's I don't want to fork the Livepeer I don't want to fork the Livepeer program.
I'm just playing around with it over here to see if I can figure out. I mean, I can also talk to you about it afterwards if I figure it out. But
maybe we'll just.
Well, not to overwhelm you, Titan, but there is a product that Grafana uses built called Loki, and Loki is the equivalent of Prometheus, but for logs. So, like, if you're doing all your log scraping and metrics collection, you can actually use Loki to scrape your logs and translate whatever log fields you're looking at into metrics for you. So, like, it's built to do that.
Ooh.
So it might be worthwhile to perhaps get some your hands dirty with Loki and see if you can trace a given log line, parse the data, and then convert it into a metric. So, like, you're getting numbers right out of those log lines that you're parsing. So you should be able to use Loki to make that easier for you, and then it'll feed into your Grafana so that you can write a dashboard against it.
Yeah, I don't need a dashboard. I just need because I'm.
You just need the data. Yeah,
I just need the data because I'm doing
right, and that's easy to do that.
I'm doing calculations and then spitting out my own dashboard, just like HTML. But
okay, yeah, but that might be, at least you could query a Loki endpoint and get the log data as metrics.
Yeah. But then the logs get so big that I'm rotating them every hour. So then, because what I'm doing is
well, what it does is just like Prometheus. You're going to tell it what piece of that log line you want, and it's going to throw the rest away. Like, it's not going to keep all of it. It'll take line by line and say, okay, this line it matches this pattern, and it has, my winning probability. It has my transcoding per minute in it, or whatever the metrics are. So it'll say, oh, I found a match. Put this into the Livepeer transcoding metrics bucket, throw the rest of the log line away, and now you have just a bunch of integers indexing, which it doesn't do a lot of that. It doesn't take a lot of data for that.
Yeah, interesting. But I'm trying to see if there's a way to do it outside of the logs. If Livepeer provides that and it's monitoring metrics. But if
logs is like the last resort.
I don't see any way to get the by transcoder. I just went through every option it's got for that metric.
Are you searching through that in Grafana, like as a drop down?
Yeah, just to see if it was there, so I could then tell you like what you would want to query if. But yeah, there's.
Because you were saying there was trans minutes per or pixels per what?
Pixel. It's 1 million pixels per minute, but I mean you can, multiply that by what you need if you want it by hour or.
But then you can't search it by transcoder.
Exactly. So it's by Orchestrator. So, or I mean, there's other things you can split it up by. I mean, you can get it by you can't do transcoder. That's the important part.
Yeah. There you go. I think that answers my question.
If you can, I don't know how to do it.
Cool. Okay. Well, we've been at this for 2 hours, 5 minutes, and we've magically lost just about everybody. As soon as the Q&A was done, it was just like boom. So what we'll do is we'll end it here. Thank you so much for watching. If you were watching this on YouTube, this was another question actually I was going to ask, is like, do people even watch the uploaded versions on YouTube? Like, seems like a lot of work for something that Is there a benefit you
I mean,
think?
I have in the past, just out of curiosity, but I mean, I'm usually here, so.
Yeah. I
Well,
just
you know better.
Yes.
I mean, how many views do you get?
the water coolers get like 40, 50 views. But like I'm just wondering if it's like
Well,
worth it.
I guess there's your answer, right?
Like is
How
it
long do they watch for?
oh, good question. I should probably go back
I'm
and
just curious, like just totally curious. Now
you
that we're
know, like
talking about
is
it,
there a benefit to posting these? Like, or should I be so I tried to do a couple things. I've tried to like do clips where I take the highlights of Q&As and stuff and post them. But those get like 30, 40 views anyway. Like all the water cooler stuff just like doesn't get any views. And I'm like, well, if no one's watching it, like, what's the point of wasting my time on it?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously it's a pretty small audience that would be interested in it, and a good portion of them, I'm gonna guess, are going to be actually in here live, and then so basically, I think your audience is orchestrators who wanted to be here but couldn't for one reason or another, and
Yeah.
maybe a couple just random people who are just thinking about becoming an orchestrator, but yeah, it's a small potential audience in my opinion.
But then again, like it only takes one, like it also shows that like this is happening. And I think people find that interesting to just to see like, oh wow, there's like these calls every week. Like maybe I'll hop on one or
The one thing I wonder about when you post them is when we're talking about a lot of problems with LivePeer. I was like, is that good or bad for the protocol? I mean, the openness I get is good, but are we putting out some information that might scare people away too?
well, I
What can
mean,
I say? It's useful for sometimes when you miss the live. It's useful to see it, and also for me, sometimes it's useful because I can have the live translation in the video, so I can understand some thing I miss during the live.
Frank, have you ever gone back and watched one of them?
Yeah, I already watched some of them. Yeah. But I know there is a few audience. It's a little audience for sure. I understand. So it's a lot of work for you for that. Sure.
Yeah, but as a community lead, I mean, the purpose of this is to encourage every single person to be a part of it that wants to be a part of it, right? So if 50 people watch it and 2 people find it valuable, well, hey, that's who I'm catering
Yeah.
to, right? Is the 2 people
Yeah,
that,
that's true.
right? This isn't a Justin Bieber music video where I need like 100 million views. Like this is digging deep on personalizing and targeting people in the community to keep them engaged and active and provide value.
I think you can keep the video on YouTube for few weeks because after a moment, I think the what you speak about, it's not necessarily important because the fix it's done or something like that. So it's nice to have the possibility to see the video during 1 or 2 weeks if you miss the live, but after maybe it's not necessary. I don't know.
Yeah, I missed posting the last 2 weeks. Just been too busy.
Yeah.
So now if I post them, the Q&A sessions I think are worth posting. But
sure.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, cool. Well, we'll end it here. What I'll do, Papa Bear, is I'll probably rendezvous with you a bit more about those metrics, or Marco if he's around. Either way, I'm gonna try and figure out. I'm trying to rebuild the back end of Titan Node Pool so that it's actually reliable and accurate. Because
as a member of the pool, I welcome that.
Right, like it's been a learning curve. This is my first software program. I literally am learning Python as I'm building this, so this is like like a project for me on education as well as like actually just
Well,
trying
I
to.
can say this, I know you've changed it from the original way you built it, but even including like your first release to now, it's been wow, I think like over 7 months, or at least over 6 months. I've only had it crash on me once, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, the original version was built with a drag and drop editor. It's a Python drag and drop editor, which is how I learned how to code, because I didn't actually know how to write anything. I didn't understand. So it was really easy to do drag and drop because it doesn't allow you to drag something in that doesn't actually fit there. So like I did a drag and drop editor for like 2 years, and I was like, like I got so good at it that now I went and hired a tutor that like taught me how to actually write. But I already understood the concepts of everything because I spent so much time doing the drag and drop editor that when he was explaining like a loop, I was like, oh, trust me, I know all about loops. Like, I got this. So it's actually been a quick learning process, learning Python, because I already started with a drag and drop editor, and that's how I built that first version, Papa Bear.
Yeah, I mean, the only issue there was that it was, hey, you're trying to install a virus on your machine, but do you trust this guy? But yeah, other
right.
than that,
Well,
yeah, but the main part I was trying to make is it's very stable. I mean, extremely stable. I mean, I just let it go. I mean, just the other day I happened to notice it stopped, and I don't know what could have been something on my end, but I mean, it's literally, I've had it running for over. I mean, you released it in December of last year, so I mean, one time that I can think of that it went down. I mean,
wow.
on my side, so
Are
pretty good.
you still running the older versions? Like, have you updated the version at all?
I believe I'm on 13 or something like that.
Okay.
I think I have it listed as 13. I don't even know if that's something, a number I made up or what. But
No, 13. Yeah, 1.13 is.
oh, okay.
It's good. Yeah, I'm working on 1.16, which is like I'm trying to use databases now. So I have an SQL database. I'm gonna try and like build it all around querying databases, which I think is scalable and actually proper. Because right now it just randomly uploads files to my server where I like parse through them and like try and the whole Titan node pool thing has started out like a grade 1 amateur programmer, and now I'm like actually doing it, trying to do it right. So it's taking me like 7 months.
So you're saying I should upgrade? I just, what it is, I never even know when an upgrade comes out because everything's working, and I just I didn't even think about it.
It's not important yet. I will make a big announcement when the new big like important upgrade comes, because the new back end will have to use the new front end updated version. So, but you won't, funny enough, as a transcoder, you probably won't notice a difference. Like the dashboard will look the same, the reliability will look the same. Like it's just for scalability on my side. Like I don't think it's very scalable the way it is right now. Like even doing payouts, I'm literally like manual. So the entire Titan node pool is built on an Excel spreadsheet. And I manually type in like how much I'm paying out an Orchestrator, and then I go into MetaMask and pay them out.
Hey, at least you're paying out. Like LivePool owes me a lot of money. I don't know where Nico is. So
yeah,
it's working. I know